It's 3 a.m. The house is silent. The world is asleep. But you are awake. You're staring at the ceiling, your heart rate slightly elevated, your jaw tight enough to crack a walnut. You just took a cold shower. Or maybe you just ran 5 miles in the dark. Or maybe you just spent an hour scrolling through things you swore you'd stop looking at, hating yourself with every swipe. You tell yourself, it's discipline. You tell yourself, I am reclaiming my power. I am transcending the animal. I am becoming a god. But deep down, in that quiet, terrifying place where you can't lie to yourself, you know the truth. You aren't disciplined. You're terrified. You aren't freeing yourself. You're holding your breath underwater, waiting to see how long you can survive before you have to come up for air. Here is the brutal paradox that no one in the self-help industry wants to tell you. The thing you're trying to kill is the only thing keeping you alive. When you turn sexual discipline into a weapon against yourself, you don't become free. You become obsessed. You don't transcend desire. You feed it. You starve the wolf, yes, but a starved wolf doesn't die. It goes mad. It starts eating its own leg just to survive. And now that madness is wearing your face. You think you're the master of your domain? Look closer. You're not the rider. You're the horse, galloping off a cliff because you're too scared to stop. Welcome to the shadow of discipline. Let's dig up what you buried. To understand why your discipline has mutated into a monster, we have to look at the architecture of your nervous system. We have to talk about 3 concepts that explain 90% of human suffering: reactance, the shadow, and the default mode network. First, psychological reactance. Do you know what happens when you tell a child, do not think about a pink elephant? What do they think about? The pink elephant, immediately, obsessively. Your brain is wired for threat detection, not suppression. When you say, I will never look at porn again, or I will never touch myself again, your brain doesn't hear a command. It hears a threat to its survival. It marks sex as forbidden fruit, and in the psychology of desire, nothing is more potent than the forbidden. You aren't removing the urge. You are putting it on a pedestal and lighting candles around it. Second, the Jungian shadow. Carl Jung said it best. What you resist persists. You have a part of you that is messy, biological, hungry, and loud. That is your shadow. You hated this part of yourself. Maybe because you were shamed for it as a kid. Maybe because you felt weak when you were vulnerable. So you tried to exile it. You tried to become the ascetic, the monk, the stoic, the machine. But here is the trap. You cannot amputate a part of your psyche without bleeding out. When you cut off your sexuality, you don't just cut off the lust. You cut off the aliveness. You cut off the creativity. You cut off the capacity to feel deep, earth-shattering joy. You are trying to be a statue, but you are made of flesh, and the flesh is screaming. Third, the default mode network. This is the part of your brain that activates when you're not doing anything. It's the narrative self. It's where you think about you. When you repress your sexual energy, that energy doesn't vanish. Energy is never destroyed. It's transformed. So, where does it go? It floods into your DMN. It turns into rumination. It turns into anxiety. It turns into that voice in your head that says, You're a fraud. You're dirty. You're not doing enough. You think you're being holy? You're actually just overactivating your self-criticism. You have turned your libido into a loop of self-hatred. You didn't kill the demon. You just starved it until it became a ghost that haunts your every waking moment. There is a specific kind of grief that no one talks about. It's not the grief of losing a lover. It's the grief of losing yourself. The philosopher Seneca wrote about the fear of death, but he also warned about the fear of life. That is where you are living. You have committed a slow suicide of the soul. Think about the cost, the real cost. You are walking around with a clenched fist 24 hours a day. Your pelvic floor is tight. Your throat is closed. Your eyes are guarded. You are in survival mode because you decided that your natural urges are the enemy. Rainer Maria Rilke wrote, "Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. Your lust, your hunger, your desire to be held, those weren't dragons. They were princesses. They were invitations to be human, and you slaughtered them because you were afraid they would eat you. The tragedy is this. You sacrificed your authenticity for the illusion of safety. You wanted to be good so badly that you became empty. You look at people who are messy, who are chaotic, who are undisciplined, and you judge them. You look down on them, but deep down, you're jealous. You're jealous because they are feeling. They are vibrating with life. They are making mistakes, yes, but they are alive. You're a museum exhibit. Perfect, preserved, dead inside. You are mourning a life you never allowed yourself to live. And that grief, it has to go somewhere. So it turns into obsession. It turns into counting your days. It turns into checking your phone. It turns into the need to control everything because you feel so out of control inside. I'm not like that, you might be thinking. I'm just focused. Let's check. Let's see if the armor fits. Here are the 6 symptoms of the discipline trap. Tell me if this sounds like you. 1. The saint-sinner cycle. You are a monk for 20 days. You eat clean. You work hard. You feel superior. Then, on day 21, you binge. You destroy everything. You hate yourself. Then, you go back to being a monk. You aren't disciplined. You're swinging between starvation and gluttony. You have no middle ground. You don't know how to just be. 2. Moral superiority. You judge people who enjoy themselves. You see someone enjoying a beer or a casual hookup or a lazy Sunday, and you feel a spike of disgust. Why? Because their freedom reminds you of your prison. You have to believe they are weak so you can feel strong. 3. Intimacy. Anorexia. You can't let anyone in. Not really. Because if you let someone in, they might see the mess. They might see the desire. So, you keep them at arm's length. You're independent, you say. No, you're terrified. You'd rather be lonely than vulnerable. 4. Somatic numbness. You can't cry. You can't laugh until your stomach hurts. You feel flat. You're an emotional anorexic. You've cut off the sexual energy, but you can't cut just the sexual energy. You cut the whole power line. You are numb to the bad, which means you are numb to the good. 5. The gaze of shame. You walk into a room and you scan for threats. You scan for attractive women. You scan for danger. You are hypervigilant. You think you're the predator. No, you're the prey. You're running from your own mind. 6. The God complex. You think if you just try harder, if you just do one more set of push-ups, if you just meditate for one more hour, you will finally be fixed. You are chasing a finish line that doesn't exist. You are trying to polish a turd. You are trying to fix a biological function with willpower. It's insanity. If you nodded at even 2 of those, the discipline isn't working. The discipline is the problem. So, how do we stop? You don't stop by trying harder. You stop by letting go. The antidote to obsession is not more control. It's integration. We have to bring the shadow back into the light. We have to stop exiling the animal and start taming it. Here is the path. It's not easy. It's scarier than the cold shower. Step 1. Drop the story. Stop telling yourself you're reclaiming your power. Admit you're scared. Say it out loud. I am repressing my sexuality because I am afraid of being overwhelmed. Shame thrives in the dark. When you turn on the light, it shrinks. Step 2. Somatic release. The trauma isn't in your head. It's in your hips. It's in your jaw. It's in your gut. You have to shake it out. Literally. Shake your body like a wet dog. Scream into a pillow. Let the ugly feelings out. You have to feel the urge without acting on it compulsively, but without hating yourself for having it. Just watch it. Oh, there's desire. Hello, desire. You're just energy. Step 3. Inner child reparenting. Go back to that version of you who felt shame. The 13-year-old boy who was told sex was dirty. Walk up to him, put your hand on his shoulder, and tell him, it's okay to want, it's okay to be hungry. You aren't bad, you're just alive. He needs permission to be human. Step 4. From no to yes. Discipline is a no life. No porn, no sugar, no fun. Healing is a yes life. Yes to pleasure. Yes to connection. Yes to my messy, beautiful body. When you stop fighting the river, you start floating. The goal is not to be a monk. The goal is to be a man, a whole man, a man who can feel the fire of desire and not get burned, a man who can look at a woman and feel desire but also feel respect and fear and love all at the same time. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be real. Visual suggestion. Narrator looking directly into the lens. Eye contact unbroken. The cage door is open. You've just been too scared to walk through it. You are not your discipline. You are not your streak. You are not your shame. You are the sky. The thoughts, the urges, they are just the weather passing through. Stop trying to stop the storm. Just build a house that can withstand it. Be soft, be messy, be alive. If this resonated with you, if you felt that tightness in your chest loosen just a little bit, share this. Not because you need validation, but because there are millions of men out there starving in the dark, thinking they're the only ones. Let them know they're not alone. Subscribe. We're done with the masks here.